Naruto is packed with villains, and the series likes to take these villains and slowly erase the contrast between them to fit them closer to the moral gray, while dragging our heroes into that gray too. And over the course of the series, these characters and their beliefs and their motivations become clear to Naruto. He can empathize with them because he was there too. Gaara, Nagato, Obito, he has something in common with them all. A twisted and messed up world seeping in and taking that innocence they were all born with and violently twisting it out of shape, killing what little of their heart remained. Naruto never gave in. He never stopped believing. Naruto was strong through it all, but he often acknowledged that it could have so easily been himself on the other end of that. And this theme is going to be the central element to our Tsukuyomi today. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you're subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Naruto sat in darkness. His breathing was quick, it was heavy. Only a small sliver of light poured in from the outside, just enough light from the moon coming through his window. From above, clothes on hangers draped down on top of him, trying to hide him from everything. He looked down at his hand. Blood. So much blood. His hand was covered in that life-giving essence, that red viscous fluid that pumped through the veins of all living beings. He tried to calm his heart, because as his heart rate increased, so too did the amount of blood leaving his body. It was an odd feeling. As he watched this red liquid slowly leave, he felt as if he were watching his own life leave his body. "I can't die yet," he said. "I don't want to die yet." He attempted to take one of the shirts that had fallen to the floor and push it against his body to staunch the bleeding, but even now that shirt too was becoming red and stained, and the smell of iron began to fill his nose as he almost wanted to panic. For a moment, he was stuck in his own head, ignorant of the outside world, and then, suddenly the door was opened. I bet you're wondering what's going on in this scene. Why is Naruto hiding? Why is he bleeding? Well, to say that his life has literally led up to this one moment is the understatement of the century. But to understand what this scene is, we need to know what led up to this point. On a cold October night, one so fragile and pure was born into this world. Born into the arms of love, into the arms of its parents. So innocent and weak. But fate truly was a cruel mistress. Not even one night could he receive respite. The very day he was born, his life was threatened because of circumstances out of his control, out of his hands. And even if such circumstances were in hand, he was far too young and lacking of any real cognitive or motor function to be able to do anything about it but cry, hoping someone else would take matters into their own hands for him. He was too weak, and the one to bear up that burden was none other than Dada, Pop, father. The intense smell of body spray from a man who knew he was cool and wanted everyone to know so in a fashion so offensive to the nose would lift the babe from the arms of the one who threatened it, as if he were a master criminal, asking Annie if she was okay. After this bout of action, the newborn was blessed with an intermission, more peace. For a moment, the infant assumed it was over. Maybe it was finally catching a break on its birthday. No. A freaking beast the size of a mountain was dropped upon its home, and then the infant's body, mind, and very soul were violated by the horrific monster that had once threatened the world. How cruel, how devastating. The infant's parents were dead. The fourth Hokage was dead. The third Hokage and his wife, both present at the birth, were dead. Konoha was in ruins, and the leadership was all but shredded. From the ashes, someone had to take the position of power, and that man was Danzo Shimura, appointed to be the fifth Hokage by the Council of Elders until the village could be rebuilt. And from there, the daimyo would authorize his official installment as fifth. His ugly mug permanently scarring the landscape as Hokage Rock was once more edited to feature a new face. Often, Naruto wondered how they could so quickly add a face like that. He assumed it would take about 3.5 years, but no, it was done in the span of a single year. Naruto would assume that this had to be solely the usage of Earth-style ninjutsu. There was no other way that it could be done so quickly, and considering that each face jutted out from the flat rock as opposed to being carved into the stone, it had to be Earth-style. And so Naruto grew up alone. The moment he was capable of eating by himself, bathing by himself, and going to bed by himself, he was put into a house all by himself. And so he lived. He did what he needed to do to keep himself alive. He was presented a book on how to do these things, a guide. Knowing he wouldn't read the whole thing, they simply marked what they knew he could read, which is the basics. They then gave references as to what to do. as it told him how to do things, like how to clean vomit out of the carpet, how to mop and load a dishwasher, as well as things that could and could not be loaded into a dishwasher and how to tell the difference. He didn't have to worry about paying the bills, as that would simply be relegated to a secretary, as they didn't expect a toddler to know how to balance a checkbook. That's also why monthly expense money was not a check, but physical bills. But money could never fill the hole in his heart, the loneliness that existed for one without a mother or father. When scared, he had to comfort himself. When hurt, he needed to heal himself. When sick, he needed to drag himself out of bed and get the medicine himself, and hope he wasn't too delirious to be unable to properly read the instructions. Life was hellish, and even so young, Naruto understood the concept of hell, realizing he was currently living in it. But matters were worse. Everyone outside of his apartment, everyone in the village treated him as a pariah. He remembered his first time truly experiencing this. He left for a grocery run. More than likely, he was being stared at, but he was a bit too naive to notice. At the store, he bought and paid for his groceries only to have the cashier so rudely criticize him. Others refused him service in general. All of that being said, Naruto never really gave much thought to it. For a few months, Naruto simply assumed that these people were mistaking him for another boy who had probably stolen from them or something. He began asking around if anyone was doing bad things and using his name or face, but of course he never got an answer from anyone. Nobody ever explained anything to him at all, so for a time he began to think that he was just being mistaken. And whenever he would go to the store and someone would say something rude to him, he would simply smile at them and tell them that they mistook him for someone else. This ironically was a good strategy, as some people were beginning to wonder if they really were mistaking this boy for that damnable brat Naruto. But no, some people knew flatly that he was who they hated and continued to pick on him. As he grew older and wiser, Naruto began to realize that he was not being mistaken. He would begin asking around as to why people treated him like this, but nobody would give him a straight answer. That was really more or less a rule. Nobody was allowed to explain to Naruto what he was or who he was. There was no rule to stop discrimination against him, only a rule to keep him from learning the truth of what he was, because knowledge of that, they feared, would cause Naruto to lose control of the beast. It seemed that ignorance had made the seal stronger. So long as the beast didn't talk to Naruto, and as long as a curious Naruto didn't peel back any layers, they didn't need to worry about keeping him within the Uzumaki seal circle that the village sat atop of. But that didn't stop Naruto from wondering why. Naruto grew older still, grew stronger, more intelligent. But his emotions grew too, and he began to realize when something wasn't fair, and his emotions, now developing deeper, had a deeper understanding of concepts like anger, hatred, and above all else, pettiness. This led to malicious pranks. When a store owner mistreated him, the day after, the owner would return to find their shop vandalized. This led to more trips to the Konoha police station than Naruto would like to admit, and yes, there was punishment for his actions. He did not get away with it. He was disciplined, even if Naruto thought such discipline to be unfair. Who had the right to punish him and treat him as a parent would without actually being in his life to be a parent? His emotions grew more and more wild, out of control, and then one day it happened. Someone let slip mention of him being a demon fox. They didn't elaborate on it, and it was more or less a simple passing remark. Naruto himself would attempt to figure out what this meant and would peel away his deeper levels of self-consciousness after reading up on the demon fox and the sealing rituals done to keep it at bay, to stop it from destroying everything, to keep it as a tool in Konoha's repertoire. As he sought answers within himself to see if it were true that such a creature could be sealed inside of him, he discovered it. Hidden under the tarp of inky seals and covered by the signature of his own chakra, a darkness festered, a powerful one, pure hate radiating out of a cage. It felt as if a psycho were living in Naruto's own head. He attempted to experiment with it, talking to it, trying to get some explanation from it, but all it did was spew bile at him, words of hatred and destruction, spitting curses on Naruto, his parents, his community, his village, his ancestry. And so Naruto covered it up as best he could. However, he had opened a Pandora's box, and now that box could never be closed again. By admitting the creature was there, he could now no longer deny its existence. And because he now had knowledge of it, he had given it a bit more freedom to be vocal about its displeasure of being locked away in such a frame as this. Despite this, Naruto found himself going back to the creature time and time again, to the point that even Kurama himself began to wonder what was wrong with this kid. Naruto and Kurama sensed a similarity between each other. Something in common that almost made them friends? No, That was too strong of a word to call a peaceable relationship between a prisoner and a warden. But as time began, the lines separating prisoner from warden began to blur, and the abstract questions of who really was the warden began to arise. Was Naruto the warden and Kurama the prisoner? Was Kurama the warden and Naruto the prisoner? Or was it possible that they were both prisoners? But if that were so, then who was the warden? Kurama found some level of enjoyment in questioning the little blonde boy and found that there were similarities between them. "I used to be like you," Kurama said, "excitable but happy, perhaps even kind to humans. But I got burned and hurt by them and turned into this. And I wonder, how long will it be until you too are burned?" Those words stuck in Naruto's head like glue. He couldn't let them go. He began to realize all the more the line that blurred him and the Nine-Tails was slowly disappearing, as people outside of their dyad began to mistake Naruto for the Nine-Tails. Maybe Kurama was taking advantage of the boy. Perhaps he was merely toying with him. But at the same time, he didn't know why, but he was beginning to like this child. After all, despite him being a lowly, powerless human compared to a god of nature such as Kurama, they both had a few shared life experiences. And Kurama had never witnessed this kind of unfettered darkness in anyone before. Maybe it was because he was young, but Naruto didn't chain away his dark emotions or desires, and he wasn't afraid of getting revenge as his lengthy juvenile delinquency record proved. Naruto might have actually been the perfect vessel for Kurama, and perhaps this was okay. Perhaps Kurama could use a human vessel for walking among them undetected, and perhaps Naruto could use a kaiju-esque form to fight back against all those who threatened him. Perhaps, maybe, just maybe, together they could live and work to protect themselves, to find greater freedom, security, symbiosis, a symbiotic relationship. Kurama had never thought these thoughts before. The idea that he could be happy living inside of a human. But then again, he came to realize that the idea of using a human as a vessel was not what angered him. It was being forced to. It was the cage he was in, the lock. He wanted to have the choice to leave if he so desired. And being denied that turned him into a slave. And that slight to his honor, that defiling of his name and placement in this world's food chain and natural order caused him to fume. But this child was not one who had any conscious effort in doing that, as he had only just now realized who and what he was. Perhaps all of these things made them perfect. But alas, Naruto, as of yet, remained distrustful. And so he should. Kurama could not blame him and even to a point applauded him. This boy's instincts were keeping him alive. Do not trust the fox. Kurama knew if he ever totally left Naruto without good graces, he would kill Naruto. Perhaps there was a way to alleviate that and put them both on equal footing. After all, so long as they both feared for their lives, no trust could form between them. And without such a thing, neither of them could ever have what they wanted. But these were merely the thoughts of Kurama as he began to consider steps forward. He, however, was not the only one considering steps forward. Welcome to the Fourth Great Ninja War. The world was once more at war, and the process of going to war was orchestrated mostly by Danzo Shimura. It was often said that a wise king never seeks war, but must always be ready for it, or so Odin once said. Danzo was here to prove that wrong. He realized something. An old phrase once said to explain the ups and downs of national cycles. Hard times make strong men make good times make weak men make hard times. This saying was the basis of Danzo's beliefs. Konoha needed to be strong, and to be strong, it needed to thrive off of hard times. Money and resources would pour in, and as wars became more prevalent, the daimyo would recognize that the ninja village he funded, Konoha, was even more necessary than it seemed. War could be a business. As much as people loved peace and spoke of their desires, they were hypocrites. They lived in a ninja village that trained and produced ninja. And ninja were soldiers, warriors. They were mercenaries. A ninja that wanted peace was the same as a real estate agent that wished that all houses and homes were free. It's the same as a doctor who wished that there were no diseases to cure, no pains and illnesses to fight. The same as an actor that wished all people would stop attending plays. They denied the very thing that made them useful. And so, for the village to thrive, to grow powerful, to grow strong, it needed to instigate, proliferate, and elongate eras of war and suffering. Because by such things, the village grew. It was a simple concept, but without shinobi and war, Konoha was just another village, one of thousands that dotted the landscape. If you didn't want to be a ninja, then why didn't you just go live in one of the other cities? The capital of the Land of Fire was 10 times as beautiful as this place and had far more people to sell your wares to. Danzo realized these things, and so he secretly used the powers that had been allocated to him and the skills he had acquired during his time as the head of Anbu and Root to manipulate other nations into hating each other, and into hating Konoha. After all, the shinobi world was a self-made business. To create more supply, he first needed to create demand, and there was no greater market than a world war. And just as expected, as the Land of Fire grew threatened by the Land of Wind, the Land of Lightning, the Land of Earth, the Land of Water, the Land of Iron, as the lands around them began to threaten the Land of Fire, the more funds were given to the little village that served as the military heart of the nation. And this in turn lined everyone's pockets and gave purpose to the ninja within. Who could deny their purpose? They were warriors, and if they wanted their blood-stained way of life to continue, then they needed to perpetuate the endless cycle so many sought to destroy. And now this cycle had its fuel injected into it. It was humming, purring like a cheetah. And now it was time to consolidate resources for battle. And the greatest resource in their repertoire was the Ninetales, a walking weapon of mass destruction, recklessly locked away into the body of a child. A useless child that could not be trusted to function on the battlefield. Danzo had hoped that maybe Naruto could have time to grow into his position as Jinchuriki, but war had come more quickly than expected, and to be frank, Danzo wasn't getting any younger. So now he needed it back. The Ninetales, the beast that would keep Konoha stable as the world churned into an endless storm of blood and fire. And so Danzo sent for the beast, to have it captured, to have it taken. Naruto, on his way home, realized this. Kurama did as well. Before Naruto could detect the presence of the Anbu, Kurama had already sussed them out. His nose was more keen than 5,000 men, and because of that, he could smell even the odorless soap that the Anbu were forced to use to hide from more keen senses. Something added to mandatory care when the Inazuka clan rose to become one of Konoha's stronger clans. Kurama would not particularly tell Naruto what it was that he smelled, as much as he simply patched Naruto into his olfactory network to let Naruto smell it for himself. Kurama felt Naruto's muscles tighten and his pupils dilate in that moment. After that, Naruto broke into a mad dash. Kurama was astounded by his speed and wondered if this was because he patched Naruto into his senses. Kurama was amused by this, so he gave him a little more access to his physical characteristics. This caused Naruto's speed to further increase as he came down on all fours. The Anbu were startled by this, and so they too began to chase after him, trying to cut him off at every avenue. Naruto would simply cut down an alleyway to escape, refusing to slow down but unable to truly turn. He'd jump at the wall and push off to redirect himself. He kept dashing as the Anbu came after him. "Catch him! We've got to take him alive!" one of the others shouted. "Yes, but how alive is irrelevant. The new Jinchuriki is on standby now at headquarters." Naruto ran. An Anbu agent appeared before him. Kurama smiled. "A cornered rat. Let's see what he'll do with these." He gave Naruto his claws, causing the boy's fingernails to lengthen to a point and harden. Naruto's eyes glowed a shade of cyan in the dark as he approached at breakneck speeds. As Naruto's body collided with the Anbu agent, he knocked the mask from his face and utilized his razor-sharp claws to shred the man's face to the bone, mutilating him, holding him down before biting his throat out. Kurama was in awe of the brutality, the animalistic nature Naruto was displaying. No matter what the audience might think, Kurama knew for certain that he had not influenced Naruto's emotions or mind in any way. All Kurama had done was give him the tools to do what he already wanted to do. Perhaps this was pent-up rage from his years living as a caged animal. Perhaps this was the rage of betrayal. Perhaps this was the culmination of every negative moment in his life adding up into a shattering of the psyche under a life or death pressure. He growled at the now faceless figure, pink bone merely facing him, gushing blood pouring out from the wound in the throat. He once more screamed into the ruined visage of the agent, causing their body to jolt ever so slightly. A grouping of kunai and shuriken passed him by, causing him to turn and run once again. As he ran, though, he was tackled into a storefront by one of the Anbu agents, likely consumed by wrath from the needlessly brutal mauling of his brother in arms. It no longer mattered if Naruto were alive. What mattered now is that Naruto feel agony. The agent pulled his shoto and shoved it into the boy's side just below the ribs. Naruto cried out like an animal shot by a hunter's arrow. In his rage, he lifted his clawed hands and buried them into the soft, fragile orbs called eyes that the agent had situated above his nose. He cried out as Naruto ripped them free from their stalks and pulled the very dagger used to stab him free from his ribs. As the man screamed in agony, stumbling into the darkness, Naruto ran up to him and shoved the blade into his stomach, before using his hysterical strength to pull the blade upward until it hit the ribcage. As the man fell back, Naruto stepped past him. He was aware he'd been stabbed, but he did not feel the pain. The adrenaline had numbed it, and had boosted strength to his body. He had less blood in his body to carry oxygen to his brain, but the blood that remained had increased its proficiency tenfold, and gave him the strength to run. And just as an animal would, what is the instinctual place an animal goes to find refuge? Home, back to its den, a place to either barricade itself or to find rest and simply die. Naruto rushed out again, his speed seeming to have almost increased more. Making it to his apartment, he made it up the stairs and to the door. His mind was still racing, and the blur of action had yet to settle into his conscious memory. He came to his door to find it locked. Fumbling into his pocket to find the key, he attempted to put it into the lock. When his jittery hands failed to do so after 5 attempts, he threw the key down and busted the door's lock by smashing into the door, shattering the frame where the deadbolt was situated. Stepping into his home, he closed the door behind him and barred the door with a chair, and then further barricaded it as best he could. As if that would help at all. He had windows that he couldn't barricade. By this time though, his ribs were dripping blood, and his once white shirt with the red Will of Fire logo on the front was now mostly stained crimson, at least on one side. Naruto stumbled left and right, nearly falling, his bloody handprints marking the wall like corrupted childhood turkey art. Even in here he couldn't feel safe. Not at all. He felt weak, like he might pass out. His claws retracted as his senses faded. Having grown accustomed to those senses, his body felt awfully blinded by comparison. He stumbled to his closet where he opened the door, stepped in, closed the door to nearly drown out the light before collapsing into the uncleaned clothes piled along the bottom. As if subconsciously still attempting to hide, he dug a small den under the clothes with only a peephole to see outside. Kurama had simply been watching this the whole time. As Naruto lay there, he looked at the blood on his hands. Not all of it was his. The blood still present on and in his mouth and down his chest. None of it was his. It was blood from his victims. And as he began to feel his soul leaving his body, he heard the sound of shattering glass and the door being knocked from its hinges, the barricade he had set up being taken down. At this point, Naruto couldn't care less. His body was fried. His blood was seeping out and his life force was slipping away. This was the end. The fox was home, and now the fox merely wanted a safe, calm place to lie down and die. How short a life it was. How hellish and short. The Anbu agents, cautious and careful, began to follow the blood through the apartment. They called out information to the war room where the Hokage watched on. "Targets wounded. Copious amounts of blood. Transfusion bag at the ready. Bring me the boy alive," Danzo said simply. The agents stepped through, their shotos firmly gripped. "The boy can't still have enough strength to fight. He's lost too much blood," the captain said as he assured his team that they'd be safe from the back. As they followed the blood, it led into the bedroom. There they saw it lead up to the closet where a bloody handprint rested on the sliding door's grip. The agent pointed toward it. The group drew closer to the door. An agent stood there with his blade ready, flanked by 2 others as one of the agents drew close to the door from the side, planning to pull it out of the way. And so they did. The door was opened, but they saw nothing. The closet was empty. Their stances lowered until one of the agents pointed out that a pair of shoes with toes in them was exposed, out from under the clothes on the bottom. At this moment, protocol went to shit. They resorted to man's old way of testing by simply taking a stick and poking at the body to see if he was still even alive. They poked his face with the stick a few times to try and get some sort of reaction from him. There was no reaction. "Target's dead," one of the agents said, his voice a mix between disappointment and relief. Danzo slammed his fist into the table. Damn it to hell." The council watching on said nothing. They let him vent. One of the agents reached down and lifted Naruto up by his wrist and pulled him up out of the closet. They lifted the shirt to search for the wound but found nothing. "No sign of injury," one of them said. "No vital signs though. Check more thoroughly. He must be injured somehow." None could see the inner machinations of what was happening. Deep within his subconscious, Naruto sat on his knees. His vital signs were there, they were just too weak to be detected. There was pink in the reflecting pool below Naruto, slowly radiating out. "And so you see what we really are," Kurama said to him. "Neither of us are the warden. We're the prisoners." Naruto didn't respond. "They hate you like they hate me. And this hatred is based in their own pain. Pain they brought upon themselves. They were the aggressors, us the victims.
and yet they believed that they had the right to consider themselves the victims, just because they were retaliated against. The rules of man are designed to protect man and man alone, but even then, they sacrifice these rules for their own desires. In the end, the only rules to be followed are the rules of the jungle. And when men are pressed, they forget their laws and return to the jungle. It's kill or be killed.
A moment passed. Are we the prisoners? Or are we the warden? Kurama was intrigued by this statement. Naruto continued. Are we the warden, locked up by the prisoners? Kurama began to smile.
Yes, we have the power to free ourselves. You just need to go through with it. It's do or die, Naruto. Pull the tag. Free me. It's your only chance to survive.
Naruto stood and walked over, chakra filling the room to heal his wounds and restore the boy's strength. Naruto reached up to the cage and pulled the tag. He then willed the cage to open, and so it did.
Medical examiner will be here in a few minutes to confirm,
The commander said. Danzo sat there, his head propped up against his arm, his fingers sprawled out over his face, completely and utterly disillusioned with the unprofessional nature of the Anbu and their utter failure to properly handle this situation. And now, because of their failure, they had lost their greatest asset and would not be able to recover it for years. Seriously, they had one simple task: capture a small child. They weren't even expected to do this outside of the village. They were on their home turf, among their own streets. The village they supposedly knew like the back of their own hand. And yet, they couldn't even capture a small child.
Muscle movement,
one of the agents said. Danzo opened his eyes. The commander leaned in.
Nervous response?
No, sir, the hand. Look at the hand. Naruto's fingers were opening from a clenched fist as his arm slid slightly to the side.
Check vitals,
The commander called out. They once more checked for a pulse. Pulse is strong. Target's alive. Get a transfusion bag, immediately. The commander then spoke.
Didn't we check him before?
He was dead. I can't explain it, sir, but he's alive. They brought a transfusion bag and prepared to put it in. Naruto's eyes slightly opened. The moment they pressed the needle into his arm, however, he began to panic. He cried out and kicked. He curled up on his hands and knees as the Anbu began to pull back out of terror. Suddenly, Naruto sat straight up and cried out. There was an explosive release of chakra that knocked everyone back against the walls as Naruto's body was enshrouded in a tornado of fire. Naruto began to hover in the air, as if pulled up by his arms by angels. His gaze turned towards the captain, red slits for pupils gazing at him without emotion, yet his eyes saying everything that words could possibly say. Terror descended upon the room as everyone screamed out. Danzo stood there watching. Suddenly, Naruto's eyes met with the camera, as if staring straight through it at Danzo. In the distance, there was an explosion. The camera feed, being a second or two behind, then cut out as signal was lost.
What happened?
Report, Danzo cried out. Report! There was no answer. Suddenly, another explosion shook the ground. The lights flickered as if the power supply had been threatened. There was a muffled roar present in the distance as screams could also be heard. The council looked at each other.
Contact main forces. Call them back to the village.
Danzo attempted to bring up the signal. As soon as he began speaking to the Jonin in charge of the Western Front, the signal cut out. All signals went out. Another explosion was heard. Homura Mitokado would then simply proclaim what they already knew.
They've bombed the antenna farm.
The village shook as the hulking frame of the Ninetales could be seen towering over the skyline. Its claw tore through the ground, uprooting buildings and entire city blocks. Naruto was just as conscious within this beast as Kurama was. They were working this together, their collective hatred and anger fueling the form more. This beast was a true threat. Despite Kurama having had his two natures split in half and his power severed in two, he was even stronger now than he was then. The potent chakra potential of this little boy mixed with his unbridled rage bore more chakra to them and caused their power to transcend even what Kurama was capable of alone in years past.
Oh yes, this feels nice,
two voices said in unison within the beast. Naruto and Kurama speaking together, as if they were one person.
You dared persecute me?
The dual voices said.
I will show you the wrath of a god.
The beast turned and fired a tailed beast ball into the heart of the village's main power plant, bringing darkness to the village.
No more talking, no more light.
The twin-voiced beast shouted over the cold night air.
Only death.
The beast giggled as it continued to carve a path straight through the village toward the Hokage's monument. When it reached the monument, it clawed and sliced to pull the faces of men from the natural beauty of nature. As Danzo Shimura rose to the roof of the Hokage monument, he saw the destruction and the defacing of the monument.
No, please stop. Do not destroy that,
He cried up to it. The Ninetales looked down.
Oh, what is this? One of the faces speaks back. You wish to keep your rocky face, Hokage? All right, take it. Here, catch.
He threw the earthen head down upon the former Hokage. The head shattered, as did Danzo's whole body below it. All within the Hokage residence watching the battle unfold were killed, annihilated by the destruction of the monument, and if not killed by that, then killed by the foot that stomped down upon it and ground it to nothing. Naruto and Kurama as one would not be satisfied until they had blown the village to smithereens, and then blown said smithereens to smithereens. The forces of Konoha attempted to rise up against the Kaiju Fox, but they could not stand against him in any way other than token fashion. Danzo had destroyed the Uchiha, and without their Susanoo, there was nothing as large as Kurama. He had declared a world war, and with Konoha's forces spread thin across the world, there were painfully few powerful shinobi left in the village. Clan heads and the strongest members of said clans were out in the battlefield. Nobody remained to resist the beast. And now, just now, Naruto and Kurama had become the wardens, and Konoha the prisoners. It was time for their trial. Naruto and Kurama would be the judge, jury, and executioners.
I hereby declare you guilty.
Naruto and Kurama carved their way to the edge of the village to escape its wall, and once out, they turned around to face the village and smiled.
Let so be the fate of any who dare oppose me.
Naruto and Kurama powered up the largest tailed beast ball they could. They would then fire it into the center of the largest, most populated part of Konoha, watching the flames reach up to the heavens, the shockwave and the heat spreading out to reduce everything nearby to ash and char. And then, after this, the two turned to finally leave. In so doing, they had felt that they were finally free. Free from chains, free from puppetry, finally free. And that's where I plan to call it. Honestly, it's not such a bad ending for the video itself if you ask me, but I assume you guys will wish to follow more of villain Naruto's character arc. And if this is true, then be sure to tell us so in the comments below. Don't be shy, feel free to criticize the story and offer ideas and alternatives. And if you want to see more of this series, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video to as many people as you think would be interested. And don't forget to ring that bell. If we drop part 2, you're not going to want to miss it, right? And if waiting isn't your game, I've got some similar videos over here that you might enjoy. But anyway, until next time, peace out.